afternoon to all. Thanks for your time to be here. I know you are leading and working from home, and really thankful of SCCCI for actually sponsor such a series of programs and webinars to get leaders to be updated with the latest trends and how to lead better. So I think all of us are here for because we know that we have virtual teams and remote teams, and we need to lead virtually. So my organization is called Breakthrough Catalyst. And why is it called Breakthrough? I think now all leaders and managers are facing breakthrough. The conventional way of leading, where you can see your staff face to face at the workplace or physically at your office, is no longer possible at this moment. And we are having breakthrough to think and see things and do things differently. So where are we now at this stage, and how can we elevate people and organizations to greater success? And that starts with people and leaders as well. So what I'll be covering today will be the challenges faced as a leader when you lead and manage your remote teams virtually, as well as the importance of mental well-being for your virtual teams through remote appreciation. Next is some practical tips and tools of how we can apply these appreciative languages to motivate and engage the virtual teams. And lastly is a live engaging Q&A. So you need to drop down in the Q&A chat box, and I'll answer that in the last 30 minutes of the webinar. So for the Q&A, the context is about how to motivate and engage your employees who are working remotely from you. That will be the purpose of the Q&A. So just in this month, 4th of May, our Minister for Trade and Industry, Mr. Chan, has mentioned that working from home is going to be a norm for some time, at least for this year. It's no longer a choice that we can resist or reject. It has become a reality. And I do hear from many leaders and employees that they felt very uncertain, or maybe still using certain resistance in terms of working from home. It's not something they can adjust immediately. And just today, I was Googling and see 3 key organizations, although they're US MNCs, but we know that this may set the trend that Google and Facebook and Twitter is asking their staff to extend working from home till 2021. As long as they can work from home and doing fine and well now, even in the virtual team setting, they can be done. So this is a new norm of remote employees, and that means that our leadership style, the traditional way of leading teams, intact teams as with you in the physical world, may have to change and reframe into virtual leadership. So the challenge of leading virtually, I believe, as all leaders, is out of sight. You know, we're so used to have our teams with us, communicating, having meeting and discussion. It's just straight talking to them. And some leaders also first time maybe being a virtual leader, unless you work in an MNC where you have been managing teams in different time zones and geographical regions. I think to us, maybe leading staff is like very concerned. Are they really doing work? Do they know what to do? You know, sometimes you may say in this particular example is, why are you not replying to my work emails? There's a timeline to reply. Are you really working from home, or are you resting and watching Netflix, or doing your personal time, doing your personal work? So I think out of sight doesn't mean it's out of mind and out of touch, right? Of course, we can't see them face to face now. We can still see them and understand them and feel them at the virtual space. So recently there was a survey results done on the COVID-19 response with 109 leaders. It's actually I4CP, a survey company that did a research with the HR team. They were asked to select 3 most common challenges when you lead and manage remote teams at your organization. So let's take a look. What are the findings? The highest is most 52% is lack of training on best practices on how to effectively lead and manage their virtual teams. And I think that's quite true, because you may not have equipped with the know-how or experience to lead them unless you work in a MNC where you have been leading teams virtually while in different time zone and different part of the geographical boundaries. Next, of course, the third common challenge is without this knowledge and skills and experience, it's difficult to motivate and engage employees to stay productive, because now it's out of touch, out of sight. And the spillover effect is because they are not so motivated and engaging, it's difficult to manage projects and tasks to get things done and processes, and even not just the remote employee alone, but even in the team setting. How are we going to get our things done? So as leaders, I find virtual leadership and the conventional leadership where we work with our teams face to face is nothing different, because both requires us to achieve goals, get tasks, get things done, and achieve results. But there's also the other side that we cannot just focus on the to-do list and results. All this can really be done through people. How have we connected well and motivated our people and the relationship that we have with them? But of course, in virtual leadership, it's not so simple as to you can straight away connect your staff. There's more groundwork and prep work to be done. So I would say as long as we manage and work with humans, we are actually humans relations managers. I'd like to change your paradigm that it's not just a HR job, not human resources manager, but we are all human relations manager, because relationship with our employees helps to get things done and achieve results. So what we need to do as leaders. So Stephen Covey, who wrote the book of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he once said that it's important for physical needs, but the next highest level of a human being is psychological survival. That means to be understood, to be affirmed and appreciated. I think that's very key in these critical times. Does your employees feel that they have been understood? Are their voices being heard, being taken into consideration, their mental health and well-being, and are they appreciated, although you may not be with them at this moment? So we shall do a poll soon, and Emily will give you that poll. This is a question on how often do you show virtual appreciation to your remote employees at this moment? Is it almost daily, or at least 3 times a week? We don't expect every day, but at least 3 times a week. Or sometimes when I remember to do so, or perhaps only when my employees deserve my virtual appreciation, or last, no time to do at all. So just vote now, and let's see at this group setting, at this moment, how many of us are actually showing virtual appreciation. Yeah. So you can start doing the poll. It's right in front of you on the screen. So I give about 2 to 3 minutes for you to vote. There's no right or wrong answer. It's at this moment, this juncture, what have you been doing? How often have you been showing virtual appreciation? So it's very interesting later to see the trends. I just did one with a smaller group, and that's actually both extreme, all right, of the poll, of the results. So we shall see this group. Okay. So Emily, maybe you want to flesh out the results at this moment. We have how many people have started voting? All right. So at this moment, we can see. Thanks for sharing. The highest is 30%. Only when my employee deserves my virtual appreciation. And there's nothing wrong, because we all have criteria, right? We think that appreciation must be earned, not taken for granted sometimes. So unless there's a reason why I must do that. Okay. Followed by a close fight in between, which is at least 3 times a week, or sometimes when I remember to do so or being reminded to do so. There are 50% who is almost daily. Well done, continue that great effort. And sometimes we just have no time to do it. We can't even finish our work, how do we have the time and energy to show virtual appreciation? All right, thank you, Emmeline. We can close the poll, and we shall save this poll as well. Thank you. So I'm going to close the poll now. Okay, yes. Right. So I'm going to share a concept that you can actually use, and that actually originates from the 5 love languages. For some of you who may be aware about, we all will show love, and we need love to our family members and loved ones. So this is by Dr. Gary Chapman, and these are the 5 love languages. In a home setting, we have praise, words of affirmation. We spend quality time with our family members. Physical touch is very key. At this moment, maybe social distancing, but it's a key thing to show love, hugs and kisses. Receiving gifts that you like. And lastly, acts of service in the home setting can be simple things like cooking a meal that you enjoy, or even doing household chores. So what about showing remote appreciation? How can we bring this to the workplace? I work very closely with Dr. Paul White for the past 4 years, and I met him last year in the States. He's the co-author of the 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace. He worked very closely with Dr. Gary Chapman that if the 5 love languages can work at home, what about in the workplace? And now with the virtual setting, can it be done? So in fact, Dr. Paul White has in the past 5 years, before COVID-19, he has been doing 5 years of research about remote appreciation, which I will share at the end of the slides. What are some findings that we discovered? So what are the 5 languages of appreciation? First is the words of affirmation, which is the encouragement and praise we give, followed by the quality time we spend, and acts of service, gifts, and physical touch. So for this virtual space, and within an hour with me, I will cover the top 3, which is the virtual words that we can give. How can we spend quality time virtually in our meetings and discussion with our staff? And how do we give support acts of service virtually? So in this appreciation, I think this statement, if you believe it, is something is very, you can resonate with it very well. It's like a person who feels appreciated will always do more than what is expected. Perhaps you may have experienced this before when most of the time employees, if you appreciate them effectively and sincerely, most of them would feel very appreciated and they will do more beyond the extra mile value add to the work without being told to do so, or even beyond the job description because they feel willing to do and they feel a sense of pride because that's what Stephen Covey has said, the psychology survivor of being affirmed, being appreciated. So the first language that we can use is the words of affirmation. That's the easiest way, right? It's about what we actually said. Okay, how can we virtually encourage a team member and affirm his or her contributions to the team? So I think we all know this particular virus, okay, is the coronavirus, right? Every day, what kind of news do we receive? It's all flooded in the headlines, social media, the press, the publications about the number of soaring numbers, alarming numbers that goes up. In fact, our mind is very important. What do we feed into our mind daily? If you're flooded with such kind of negative news, and in your meetings, if everything is negative news, what would happen? So I find news can be very contagious. Positive or negative can have an impact on your virtual teams. Of course, it's positive news. It does create ripple effect for the teams to move forward. So at the start of the meeting, what do you actually say? Do you actually ask about, can you tell me what you've done, when I can see this, what are the tasks and results? Or are we very stingy to give virtual praise? So although we are leading virtually, doesn't mean that we should stop or not giving virtual praise. And how can that be done? It can be done through written comms. For some of us prefer emails, but I believe that the better methods would be visual. That means in your phone calls, rather than just the tone of the voice, it can be through the teleconferencing, where our appreciation is being enhanced by our smile, our tones, and our facial expression. And we can affirm the staff or the overall team. But to make it more effective, not just well done and thank you, I think the key is we can use these 3 Ws, which I thought is easier for you to apply, and that is when it happened, under what situation, task, or project that it did well, and what being observable. What has the staff, the team member in this difficult period where they are working remotely, what have they done right and well? And even if they didn't achieve the results, what was good about them in terms of their strengths and their efforts? And finally, why the impact? I think this difficult period, mental health is key, where employees, they feel that their role and their contributions are of significant value and impact and purposeful. So linking to the words of affirmation, be it written comms, verbal over the phone, or even the visual communications, the teleconferencing and meetup, I think you can stress the impact and how does it help the team, department, or the organization. And that actually enhances the praise. The next one is quality time. Okay, in Singapore, when we did a survey, we conducted this program for the past 4 years, we have close to 1,000 Singaporeans. Quality time is not something that is a high value in Singapore. Perhaps we are so busy being productive and efficient, there's no time to sit down to actually listen to the staff. Okay, so what is quality time here? Quality time is focused on what you're listening. So in a virtual conversation, a meeting, in a phone call, or a video conferencing, it's about how much time as leaders we are giving attention to our team member and our team. So I want to share this misconception that quality time means that I must have quantity time to make it of good quality. Now there's this issue at this moment. You have been bombarded with one after another video conferencing, be it Zoom or Microsoft Teams, one after another. So it doesn't mean that to quality time, I must have lots of meetings or long meetings of good quality. But in fact, quality time can be short meetings but of good value depending on the outcome. At the moment, are we paying attention, and how do we give the staff the airspace to share their concern, and how do we engage them in the conversation? So there are two extremes of virtual leadership. I heard of one that's very tightened, because leaders, it's their first time leading virtually, right? So maybe they're very used to the comfort zone of micromanaging. So some leaders could be very tightened, like, okay, I want to make sure my staff really do their work, they know what to do. So every day they must have webcam on, so I'm sure that they're actually working during office hours from 9 to 6, physically at the home workstation, and they're not doing their work, personal time watching TV. Or maybe I would expect my staff to respond to my email immediately or a certain time. Or the worst, to write me a report end of the day, how much time they spend on doing each task, what do they do every day? That's very tightened. And there's also another extreme that's very loosened, whereby, okay, you just need to call me when you need help. No, there's nothing, just continue to do your work. I don't need to check in with my staff, because since it's virtual leadership, right? So everything can be settled on your own, or through emails, or through this virtual space. So there's no need to actually have check in and to identify issues, or to find out how are you coping. So I think that are very two extremes, too tight and yet too loose. So too tight, the staff will feel is their mistrust, or micromanage. And too loose, some of the staff will felt that I still need the attention and care or concern from my supervisor, but it seems to be lacking. So the career of working remotely, as shown in Straits Times in just April last month, was firms has been advised to check in often on their employees to ensure their well-being. So in fact, quality time is very key in the virtual leadership. Because social distancing does not mean social disconnect. It doesn't mean that, okay, so we are working away to be safe, so we don't need to communicate and meet each other virtually, right? And I trust you know what to do. But working remotely for a very long time can lead to isolation, where employees do not feel that there's care and concern from their supervisors or within the peers. So there must be practical steps taken to ensure their mental well-being. So how can we do that? Besides praise, what are some ways in terms of quality time? So how much do you know about your team members beyond their work? I think that's very key. So at this difficult period, besides about getting things done and their roles, it's also to connect with them. How are they doing and how are they coping? So I did recent a team coaching with one of the MNC. We decided that since it's this period of circuit breaker, we decided to do something interesting. We get every team in the virtual team, right, team coaching, to share a photo, image, or item in a house, to draw a picture, to illustrate what motivates them at home when they work at home. And it was very inspiring. Like I mentioned just now, what do we fit in our mind, especially at the start of the day? When you find positive stories and we share amongst each other, that brings that high level of positive vibes, and we can get things going. There's too much negative news every day. So how can we fit more positive news? So there's also this saying by Brazilian novelist Paulo Coelho, who wrote the book on the alchemists. Just like the ancient times, the caveman and the red Indians, to change the world, we need to go back to a time when warriors would gather around and tell stories. Because that's the connecting piece. In fact, all our employees are facing the same common problem. Okay, working from home, managing difficulties, and what can we do to get that connectivity together, to share our own challenges and what we've done to cope with it? And that also indirectly is actually coaching to change their mindset. So I did this activity with one NGO, social service sector, and some companies, and that's called Empathy Circle. I would like to acknowledge Travelers. They were the one who initiated this. It's called this movement called Empathy Circle. Think of a situation where you yourself have this last meaningful heart-to-heart conversation with someone that you trusted, or team, where you felt there's a safe space that you can share. So can we actually create this safe space from a physical face-to-face conversation to a virtual space where leaders and team members can share stories and they feel connected and they can reflect together? So this importance of human connection and team coaching that we did to actually enhance the mental health of the virtual team, although they're working from home. For the past few months, they have not met each other. So I did this with one of the social service sector, and the team that we chosen was called Appreciation During this COVID-19. And These are the example of the question, a word. So they are supposed to choose a word, and a word that they can connect and resonate with at this moment, something in their mind or heart. So some of them is say, I choose to talk about family, I want to talk about change, courage, or trust, or you can just think of any word that comes in their mind. And their role is to share a story, a real story, that why they choose this word and what's happening now. So we did this empathy circle with this Muscular Diplomacy Association just last week. You can see that we hold these picture cards because we have no more physical cards, the virtual cards, right? So at moment of time, everybody's given the airspace to share, and they will lift up a heart if they feel there's to give you empathy, or they can connect with what you shared. Or we ask questions, coaching questions to help the member to share more, or get him or her to discuss other ways of the options of what can be done. So it's a very powerful space that we did. So what they like about the empathy circle was the very great question which everybody is facing is, how is everyone coping during this situation? So have you asked your staff members, or you're more concerned about getting things done? Well, this is important, but at the onset of the day of the discussion, the beginning, what was the questions that we actually inspire them to share more? And it's a safe space for authentic sharing care and concerns. No one was felt being judged. There's no right or wrong. And they start to see the other side of their colleagues beyond just word, and that build relationships. Sometimes they may not get along, or even leaders and the staff may not have the same common wavelength. So they start to build mutual trust and understanding of each other when they share their personal side of the story of how they're coping. And get to practice empathy skills, questioning skills, and attentive skills real time, virtually, a clearer mind and an outcome, especially from different perspectives. And that is a coaching moment where it's a breakthrough from what they see and what they feel initially. They begin to think differently, and the outcome will be different. And also enhance interpersonal working relationship and collaboration, which is key. And finally, feel more engaged and motivated. So quality time can be done through our conversation at the start of the meeting, moving away from just work-related to personal space. And it also means how much regular updates and communications will be given to our staff. Rather than just having a voice check-in is just physically, we just don't want to show our face, okay, and we just have a phone call or a voice call. I think the more impactful is a visual check-in, because a picture speaks 1,000 words. When you see each other's face and facial expression and body language, that creates a higher level of communication. And allow employees to share openly their concerns and fears, because they felt that they are being respected, listened to, and valued. And that's the quality time that we have in our meetings and discussion. The next language of appreciation is acts of service, whereby don't tell me how good am I just need you to support me in this difficult time, show me support and assistance. So there's a saying about customer service, how authentic it is. Your customer doesn't care how much you know, but how much you actually care. As leaders, you may be very experienced, you have the head knowledge, but how do we win and influence and inspire our employees at this moment is how much we actually care for them. So this is Lim Chong Guan. He's a former head of the civil service, and I like this quote from him. As leaders, our role is, how can I help you to do your job better? How can I help you to do your job better? So how can we transform this into a virtual leadership? How can we actually help them to do their job better, although we cannot be alongside with them, but in the virtual space? So that's about acts of service. What can we do? First, I think it's key. Team is very lost. How can we help the team to be focused and be agile, adapt to situations, and know how to prioritize? Follow up on their issues when they surface. So when the team share their problems, do we actually follow up and act on it? And be more understanding and flexible to their needs and circumstances. So employees have different life stages. Some could be coping at home with aged parents to take care, or children having their home-based learning. So be understanding and flexible as to how things are done and when to be delivered. And finally, give them personal space. Although they are working from home and they do get the salary, doesn't mean that they have to be glued to the screen 9 to 6, right? So give them the personal space, the trust, the empowerment to know how to manage their work. This is just fresh from the oven today, Straits Time, about prioritizing staff is the top priority for firms. So after circuit breaker, what would happen? How are the firms going to cope? So there's a very interesting change, evolution. I think it's really true. From Aon, they did a research, and I think what they have mentioned is there's going to be a change in leadership style from a very micromanagement style to a more laissez-faire approach, where people are given tasks and objectives, but they can manage their own schedule of how do they deliver the outcomes. So it's about delivering outcomes, and you manage it, at the end of the day, at the end of the week, it's something that you need to produce. So that is a very different form of leadership. So as we go in the beginning, virtual leadership doesn't mean micromanaging, that I need to ensure you're really doing work, physically glued to the screen, replying emails and phone calls. But we can also reframe and lead better in a virtual space by appreciating and motivating them as a virtual leader. So I've covered the 3 languages, which is the words of affirmation, the quality time we can spend with them, and finally, the acts of service. So these are the 5 languages, but I've covered the 3, and I'll share with you some results that we discover from virtual teams. So I work very closely with Dr. Paul White, and for the past 5 years, we have conducting this program. And this time around, we are actually doing more on virtual leadership because we realized that this is a key skill and experience that leaders are currently facing challenge. So in this program that we do, which is also virtually done online, it can be a customized, contextualized version. We help leaders empower them the know-how to lead and motivate their remote teams through appreciation language, so the employees feel connected and valued and appreciated by their leaders and even peers during this difficult period. And most important is to build a collaborative team, because how do you build collaboration virtually, unlike the physical space, which is much easier? So Dr. Paul White has done a research for 5 years, way before COVID-19. For the past 5 years, he has been actually doing this profiling called Motivating by Appreciation Inventory. And there was a special version tailored for remote employees and long distance, just like long distance relationship. Okay, that's the term we use. Right? And from these profiling results, you'll be able to see how, as a leader and your staff, what do they really want based on the 5 languages in the virtual space, what kind of appreciation they would prefer from a virtual leader and a remote leader. So you can better understand the ways of how do you let them feel appreciated and valued and enhance their motivation and employee engagement. You also know the specific ways of how to communicate appreciation to them, and finally, specific action plans that you can do. So I'm going to share the results, very interesting results that came out just this week. Right? We have 2005 people already doing their research, okay, which is a remote and long distance profiling. As at today, okay, in terms of words of affirmation, we can see face-to-face, 48% likes words of affirmation. And of course, for long distance remote employees, right, their percentage is 38%. What about quality time? Face-to-face, as I mentioned, is not very high, 25%. But in remote staff, virtual team members, they actually want quality time. It's the highest of all. When it comes to virtual teams, virtual leadership, they want their leaders who are leading them virtually, their remote teams, to spend quality time with them. And that is extremely very high, because many of them who actually indicate words of affirmation in the face-to-face kind of work scope has moved on to quality time in the remote leadership, remote teams that they are working now. So for this special webinar, Dr. Paul White also understands the difficult times, and I'm working closely with him. This profiling is available at a much discount rate for the organizations of these participants today. So it used to be $12.50, and it is actually a 50% discount from $25 per quote to $12.50 quote. Okay, yeah, and this is subject to 50 quotes per organization. So we allow every organization to only have 50, and it's almost a 50% discount. Yeah, and the results will allow you to see your team and your organization, what kind of virtual appreciation they would prefer, and as leaders, how could you tailor-make and customize to their needs? So for me, I will be also provide a complimentary paid consulting session. So instead of charging, I know the difficult period. In fact, I'll be working closely with those of you who are buying the profiling for your organization and the overall results of the profile. So when we say all results, right, something like this, you could see very clearly the different appreciative languages, where your employees stand, your team members, and that actually allows you to appreciate them much more effectively. All right, and there's some takeaways as well. All the participants who attend the webinar will receive an ebook, which is sent by SCCCI. Very thankful of them. They do this pro bono, all their time and effort. It's an ebook on the forgotten appreciative languages all effective leaders must learn. It'll be sent by email. And I'll also be providing a complimentary paid virtual coaching session for 5 selected leaders and managers who wants to enhance their virtual leadership. So at this moment, you find that there are areas that you want to work on in your virtual leadership, and you want to embark on a coaching session with me, you can email me at my email address, which is jasmine@breakthroughcatalyst.org. Right? So jasmine@breakthroughcatalyst.org. Right. Or you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I do post quite often sometimes, most of the time actually, on strategic, on virtual remote leadership and appreciation at the workplace. All right, so I'll stop the screen now, and I think the key thing is the Q&A. I think that's much more interesting to see the responses, right? Question that was asked earlier, would you want to talk about the question that
look at some of the questions that were differences between appreciating our employees virtually versus appreciating them face to face?
Yes, okay. This is a very common, very important question, because now we are no longer able to appreciate our staff face to face, right? It's through the virtual space. It requires more intention and more effort, because when you're in the workplace, it's easy. You just walk to the workstation and talk to the staff, or during your one-to-one meetings or discussion, you can just bring appreciate them, giving praise or giving the attention. But now, and of course in the office, you can even talk in the pantry and even at the lift. But being in a virtual space, leaders have to be more intentional, especially if it's not your comfort zone. Sometimes could be introvert leaders, you really have to make an effort. You have to really check in with the staff. Some staff are quite introvert, they may not be able to share or willing to share in the team setting base whereby there's many people. So the check-in conversation can be just very short to ask them how are they coping, what are the areas that need to work on. And as I said, you really have to make it more intentional. Yeah. So I look at 2 questions here. Okay, one of you mentioned it's useful for people managers to put what we heard to practice. Okay, if I'm an employee and my supervisor is not connecting with me since the start of the CB, what can be done? All right, thank you very much for this question. Yeah, I do know that some of you may say, okay, I know, but my supervisor, my leaders is not doing. Okay, perhaps maybe first, you can send them this video webinar or the ebook. That's one. And second, I think you need to know, even before CB, is this a style of your leader? It means as your leader, is the leader really a people manager even before this this circuit breaker, or is it only now? And perhaps he or she is still adjusting to that kind of leadership that he's not familiar with. But I think one way we can start for ourselves. Everything, before we can change others, change ourselves, we can impact on our little teams, our little departments to start with. Yeah, so I thought that question is really true. Not connecting, right? So maybe you can start connecting first. Okay, yeah, so I already answered live that question. The second question is, okay, if we're already doing the non-virtual profiling, do we need to redo using the virtual profiling? Yes, it's a bit different context. Okay, I know some of you have already done the appreciation languages based on the workplace context. Yeah, so the virtual one is a bit different. The context could be very different. So far, it's not a must, but if you are interested to know and you are, and I would say that from the observations from the research done, many people switch to quality time in the virtual teams. Yeah, so in the past, maybe in the face-to-face meetings, face-to-face workplace context, physical world quality time is their lowest or second lowest. But when it comes to virtual, they want more quality time from their bosses and also their peers being with them, because isolation can create boredom, mental health, and that will be affected. Okay, so I thought this is an interesting question as well. Okay, next is, what kind of gifts you can give as part of virtual leadership other than appreciation certificates? Thank you. Yeah, I didn't cover the gifts part because it's due to time constraint. Yes, so there are many ways of doing it. Some companies have this virtual things, like it can be accumulate points or something they can exchange, a physical thing at the end of the month or the year. But I felt that what Dr. Paul has said, because in US context, or maybe some of us work with colleagues from other countries, right? So gifts can be like simple things like buying things for them and send to their house during their birthday or their events, or even like purposely make an effort to send certain physical gifts to them if they are not in your country, in other countries, or even in Singapore, right? We can also do that, like recently we cannot see our mother, right? So we receive Mother's Day gifts, not the virtual WhatsApp. I think more effective is a physical item like flowers or even buying food for the mother that we can eat together. So I think that's some creative ways to do that. All right. Okay. But by the way, to answer that question, in the appreciation in the workplace context, means the physical workplace context, gifts is actually the lowest. It's not what employees actually prefer, which many leaders thought that I have spent a lot of money to treat them for food, they should be thankful for the gifts during Christmas. But actually, research has shown that it's actually the lowest. Many employees don't really value gifts. Okay, let me see. Okay, so I try to answer most questions, okay? Yes. Can you share a bit about empathy circle? Is this a facilitated session by a leader to increase appreciation? Great question. Okay, first, to be honest, to actually do empathy circle is not easy because the leader has to have the right intention. Is the leader willing to listen, putting aside his judgment and assumptions? So usually, an independent coach would be better because first, we don't have any vested interest. We don't have any historical baggage about it. So when we actually creating a safe space, cultivating a safe space, a bit like psychology safety for people to feel free to share and speak out. Of course, the leaders, after learning and they feel that they are ready and they're suitable, they can actually lead on their own. So for me, as a trainer and consultant, I always believe in empowering leaders. I don't believe that my clients must always comes to me every time. It's like I should empower them and enable them to do it on their own. But of course, number one is the leader willing and ready, and of course, are they willing to be able to facilitate this space? So when I did one just recently in the empathy circle, it was to my greatest impact was throughout the whole session, actually everybody cried, even the leader. I didn't expect at all that it turns out to be a session where people cried, but after that, there was a change in their perspectives and thinking. So that was very powerful because it shows that the leader and employees are feeling safe to share and speak up. Okay. So this question is, for words of affirmation, what are your thoughts on conveying this via written text versus spoken words? Okay, right. First, ask yourself, do you prefer to receive an email or do you prefer someone to talk to you and affirm you in a video conference? Okay, of course, introverts sometimes may prefer one-on-one, maybe to affirm me through our check-in conversation one-on-one, may not be in the whole team. But it shows that sometimes it's a bit different because when we do it virtually, we get to see the facial expression and hear the tone of the leader. And for me, actually, I'm an introvert. I prefer actually the not written affirmation, but virtual affirmation, so that I feel a sense of pride. And now, because we are social distancing from our leaders, the more we want to see our leaders' faces, actually, connected with our peers, right? So, under what context, as I mentioned, I think it's better to have a virtual affirmation now because we have been missing each other for months, and it's going to happen for the next few months or even throughout the year. Okay. Yes, not a question, but thank you for reminding us to show virtual leadership with virtual appreciation. Okay, I think after 1st June, there'll be team A and team B. There will not be any stuff that I can see, or some I can see more. Yes, so let's be more intentional. Do not assume that when there's no news, it's good news, because how do we check in with them? How do we actually? It's not really additional work. It's about how we lead differently. How can we enhance our leadership much more effectively by doing these deliberate steps to actually appreciate them. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, there's a question here. For traditional bosses that don't know what you're doing as employee, do we try to reach out to them and to engage them? Okay, I hope I can answer that question correctly. So yeah, I do understand that older generation bosses, they may not be used to doing this because partially it's also their era. They may not get appreciation from their bosses, and I can understand because of the different age group, the different generation. So but for now, I think it's key to engage. You have seen a multi-generational workforce already, with different education background, parenting lifestyle, and even their values are different. So it's actually very key that we need to engage them. So employee engagement, for those who know the survey results, right, they always cover one part, which is leadership style. That means, does your leader praise you at least 3 times a week? Or does the leaders give you clear goals and directions, or help you to cope with your tasks, or even manage to have conversations with you to talk about your career development and also your performance, or even let you feel inspired to work in this organization. So all this can be done through virtual space, which is the quality time, the words that we said to them, and of course, acts of service. Okay, right. So there's lots of questions. Okay, I'm trying my best to answer or combine them as well. Okay. Do you have any recommended tools to keep teams connected? And also, I have majority of them are quiet, and how would I draw them out? Okay, yeah. So there's really many tools, but I think I will not recommend until I diagnose the issue. It's just like doctors, right? We don't tell the patient and prescribe the medicine or the solution until we diagnose. So it's always a conversation, and I don't think I should prescribe something which I do not know what is the background. But as I shared just now, the example, you can see that's where we have the first check-in in the meeting and discussion. What kind of questions or activities do you get teams to share? Break away from the usual work questions. It can be simple questions like, I was doing a virtual training. We started with the questions of what is something that you learned, something new that you learned during this CB period. What is something that you learned? Okay, and there was a very second question was, what do you miss about the workplace? Actually, it's very interesting. When I asked that question, everybody was like sharing that actually I miss my friends, my colleagues. I miss the workstation. So I thought that was a very good start to get them to have a feel connected. Okay, yeah. So of course, the introverts one, I think usually you need to have more one-to-one check-in because they may not share out openly unless there's trust. Or you have already built a relationship with them, or perhaps, like I mentioned, a safe space will be using questions, get them to draw and explain, and this can be also a way to get them to share. Right. Next is, okay, let me just look at this. How do we measure the KPI of the employees virtually, since we can't just see how and what has been achieved? All right. Okay, so I think the leadership style has to change. To be honest, this is a time where your staff may not be productive and performing. It's not going to be the same speed or pace or results as in the workplace because you're all adjusting, adapting, and transiting. It's just like moving house. When you move house, right, it takes a few months to adapt to the place, or even a new job, or even a new company or a new boss, right? So be comfortable with a little bit of ambiguity, uncertainty, and inefficiency. Because if we wish for perfection, a lot of because we are actually working in a space of extremely uncertainty now, like COVID-19. There's people are trying to predict when it ends, but we never know. So we are always moving our goalposts in fact, we are moving goalposts along the way. So I think how do we measure a KPI, right? Is what you have said in the beginning of the year, where the landscape does not involve COVID-19 will no longer be relevant. So you got to review the goalposts, the staff to make adjustment. I think there's a lot of mutual understanding and collaboration because it's a win-win. I mean, employees must also understand to make adjustment for the company in order to grow and sustain, and leaders also make the adjustment to make it more realistic goal. Secondly, I think sometimes you can try out, okay, not every employee, but those employees that you can trust and you find that they are ready, they're empowered, is you give them a outcome to be done, deliverable to be done within the week or within a few days. But you may not want to really micromanage about how they do it. Yeah, so that's also for staff that you have trust, earn your trust, who are experienced, who are really performing, that you may not want to be so tight towards them, but actually get them to be accountable, but at the end of the day, they have to achieve the results. So it's just like what is shown by the Aeon director, that the leadership style is no longer micromanaging, it's about empowerment and getting them to achieve the outcomes, but they have to manage their own schedule, right? Okay. All right, so some of these are not related to virtual, but I'll still explain. So if physical gifts are not valued, right? So what type of employer appreciation is most valued to staff? Okay, so actually not just in Singapore, also in US setting, when we did the survey, global survey through the profiling, realized that actually in Singapore, that's not the virtual situation, that's the face-to-face. The highest is not gifts, but it's either words of affirmation or acts of service, right? Because we believe that actions speak louder than words. Okay, so gifts, right, is not something that not every staff will want it, because it's not something that's useful. Buying gifts, it must be something that is meaningful and useful for the staff. And it's not just a once-a-year affair like during my birthday or D&D, you know. So I think it's about the consistent, regular appreciation, and not just a once-a-year appreciation day or appreciation month. I think that's a key message that I felt. Yeah. Okay. In a remote working environment, how do you build a virtual relationship with new staff whom we have not met face-to-face? It's a very good question. During this period, I do have leaders who join the company and they have not even met their subordinates and their bosses or their colleagues in the physical space. And we do have some in the teams with new members joining in. Then how to build that connection? Yes, you need to create more effort to help this new person to actually blending with the existing team who are really much more years of service or experience. But there's one thing in common. Everyone are facing this common problem, which is coping with COVID-19, adjusting their lifestyle and their working style at home. So it's a common issue that everybody is facing, connecting everybody across the world as well, regardless of your country. So I think the connection is get everybody to share their personal using personal questions like what I mentioned just now. I always, like, every session when I do coaching or training, I will ask questions like, what do you actually learn during this COVID-19 period? So there was one very interesting answer during one program that I did. So this staff was telling me, you know, during this CV period, right, I started to learn how to be agile and versatile, because she said she still go back to work, but she began to be open-minded to try out new roles and tasks that's being assigned to her, because her department doesn't have much work to do, but other departments are struggling. So she began to find it's quite fun to work in a team, which I never tried before, working in a different role or different tasks, and we just help the organization to get going. So I thought that was very inspiring. And during that conversation, there are some new members who had never met each other before, and they are in the orientation week. And I think that was a very good start to let them understand the working culture and, of course, the positive vibes. But as leaders, start from ourselves. Okay, how are we creating that positive vibes amongst them? Okay. Right, so lots of questions. There's also like in a virtual group, okay, how to encourage all as a group. I think it's pretty common to what I mentioned just now. Okay, how can we effectively resolve conflict among team members as virtual leaders? Yeah, maybe this conflict will arise during the face-to-face workspace, not just in virtual. Maybe it get worsened during virtual. I think it's to really have a candid conversation with one-to-one. Yeah, unless one-to-one to really understand what actually happens. And of course, I don't want to prescribe a solution. I think diagnostic is key. Maybe some of you may know the root cause, or even if you know profiling tools, right? Maybe that's also a way for them to understand why are we thinking and doing things differently. Yeah. So I think that conflict is to start from having a one-to-one conversation first with them, and then how do we bridge the gaps between. Okay. But actually, it's interesting. When we did the empathy circle, right? Some of them were really gathered. They did not at the workplace. They just really thought about work. But after the outcome of the circle, empathy circle, they shared. I began to know my boss better. I began to know my colleagues better. I see the other side of them which I did not see. So it's a very positive sign, because they could be, when they're working, right? They are not very connected. They are not very collaborative. But now it actually elevates another level of trust and relationship. Okay. Right. Is it necessary to appreciate those who are low performer? Okay. Right. I have this question before. They say maybe low performance doesn't deserve appreciation. But first identify, why are they low performer? Perhaps is it because they do have the skill set to do, or maybe they do have the will to do it, right? So I think I always believe as a leader, we must apply coaching. I'm a believer in coaching and practitioner of coaching. So I always find that it's important to coach our employees to understand what they are doing, and also to get them to actually know find the root cause that they are facing, and also identify how we can actually better help them. So I think that's very key to actually first identify, is it a skill set issue, or is it certain will, the commitment. And of course, maybe at this time, why are they low performer? Perhaps they have some personal issues that they are facing now in having mental health issues. All right. So how do you actually use appreciation languages if you need to let go of your staff? Okay, I'll answer this later, because it's also a key question. Maybe in this, okay, let me see, let go of the staff, and then, all right, so I'll answer, just let me look through the questions, okay? All right, yes. Okay, this is not an easy question. I was also asked before, but I think it's really true. One of my MNC that I worked with, right, that was more than 10 years ago. We have to retrench, we have to close off the factories, and even the HR, the last person to go. So what we did was, we actually get the people, the managers and the leaders to actually do this, we actually get to talk to them, and we actually did coaching to help them to actually to coach the staff about how do they prepare themselves for interview, and also to get them to in terms of the resume writing. So the staff actually feel very appreciated that their leaders, the HR, actually help them to enable them to actually find a new job. So I think we can do our part before we let go of employees to even thank them for their contributions and their work in that aspect. Okay? So I think that is key. Everyone, even if we are letting them go, they're also human. They are not digit or just an employee ID. So how can we still show appreciation language to them? Okay, what are the top 3 practices they recommend for effective virtual leadership? Okay, so as I mentioned just now, that we also have this concern again about these situations that we can do to, as I mentioned, first, number 1 is the best practices is first, really identify to be human. I think that's very key, because this is a difficult period. It's not just about getting things done alone. We have to balance with the need to be human and be connected with our staff, to let them feel that there's psychology safety, where they're being affirmed, being appreciated. So the first, I think, is being human, and then connecting with them. And of course, let them know that they are not alone, because they're actually working from home. It's not easy, right? And if you imagine that there was no kind of check-in, constant check-in, right, that would be very challenging as well. So I think that are the top 3 practices. And be flexible, because I mentioned the goalposts has to be changed along the way due to the dynamism and uncertainty of COVID-19, right? What we actually ascertained at the start may have to change, and let's make some adjustment and be flexible. Okay. Do you have any tips for us as leaders to lead and manage care with stress and challenges given the current situation? So I think it's for leaders. Yeah, I know it's not easy because even now leaders may say, oh, so appreciation is fallen on my hands now, on my shoulders. So what can I do for my self-care? Self-care. So as leaders, maybe in this conversation with staff, I think you can be candid to tell them that leaders also need appreciation. It's not just a one-way, it's also a two-way. To let employees know that how can they help you to do your job better? How can the employee help the leader to do the job better? So I think that's also a very important thing that we also can share the kind of help we need. And also next, of course, self-care. Self-care is key. I think that as leaders, if we do our best, we should also, just like social worker or whatever kind of profession, sometimes you have to handle a lot of difficult challenges. It's like a dustbin collecting a lot of dirt. But at the end of the day, we must know how to discard the dustbin and when to discard the dustbin, so that we have self-care. And I think the part about sometimes in your teams, you can also share your challenges and concerns so that and they will be able to support you as well. Okay. There's no link to do the profiling because that is a paid version. So if you're interested, as I mentioned, now Portal Provide is having a discount, 50%, and that's about USD $12.50 from the usual price. So you can connect with me if you're interested to know. Okay. It seems like during this period of non-connection with team and bosses, there's a possibility of being distracted with the household chores versus the work. So how and what is the best way to bring the team back on track? Okay, so I assume that, okay, if let's say it's really post-CB, right, and they're going back to work, there's also adjustment to be done when they go back to work. I mean, that is still uncertain because we have to depend on directives from the government. But I think maybe we talk about now. So it's going to happen that even post-CB, right, there will be remote teams. People were doing on split teams, working from homes on certain days, or some totally from home. I think that it's about giving okay, so again, as a leader, we also have families ourselves, right? Okay, perhaps maybe put yourself in the shoes of your staff who's having respect from the parent, or having aged parents or young children, maybe make some adjustment. It's like acts of service. Making some adjustment to understand that they may be sometimes busy, and what is a good time, appropriate time that we can connect and talk about work. Yeah, so I think that is about a lot of open communication and collaboration to make that adjustment and appropriate time. But at the end of the day, it's still I do believe there's also very clear deliverables to be achieved. I think that is important because we all have a role to play, even employees, right? No matter what, we have to be responsible to still fulfill our roles and tasks. So it's how we manage the work and yet able to deliver the schedule and outcomes on time. Okay. Yeah. So let me go back to one of the questions. Okay, let me see on the back, behind. Yes. Do you think, hey, this is a very interesting question. Okay, this is not really related, but I think what I felt was first, talking about appreciation, right? Some leaders really find it's very hard to appreciate. Number one could be the personal experience whereby they don't need appreciation to be motivated because they're very self-driven and very self-motivated already. So sometimes they assume that since I can get things done, I'm a high performer without appreciation, without attention from my boss. So I assume that my staff doesn't need it. But again, what makes you feel motivated is not the same for your staff because nobody is the same. We're all motivated or we need different forms of appreciation differently. So I think it's not about training alone. Training is just one part. The first is what is your attitude towards your people. Just like I saw one important thing is which I also share in my training many times, is what are you catching? Do you catch people doing things right? Or do you catch people doing things more often? So if our lenses in our eyes is like filtering, catching people doing things wrong, honestly, it's very hard to appreciate. Even if you appreciate, it may not be very effective and very authentic. So there's a lot of self-work. So when I coach leaders who share with me, it's not their comfort zone, it's not their nature to appreciate. And I think they really see it because they realize that actually what works for me may not work for my staff because we're all very different. Okay. So let me see any questions on the chat box. Okay, so there's some chat as well. So Q&A is the one that I will be referring. Chat box will be later if I have time. It seems like during this period of non-connection with team and bosses, is there a possibility of being distracted? Okay, that's recovered. Okay, yeah. So profiling, again, as I mentioned, you just need to drop me an email. There's no certification for profiling because however, as a premium partner, I work closely with Dr. Paul Wright to analyze the results. So we do produce a summary of the results of your company, and that gives an overview rather than just individual results. Okay, so look at the chat box now. Right, so actually, okay, let's see. All right, so usually the questions are in the Q&A lah, but there's some in the chat box. All right, try to understand them beyond. Some of them are intruding their personal space. How far do we take within the professional space? Okay, it could be something very unusual. Maybe we may not be doing often, but I think take baby steps at the start. We actually, I think that question that I asked them, simple questions like, during CB period, what is something that changed you? What do you eat for lunch? These are questions that get people excited, and I don't think that's intrude the personal space. It's about sharing your personal insights and how are you coping. Yeah. Okay, giving praise. All right, and also talk about introverts. All right. Okay, what's the best collaboration virtual meeting software project management? Okay, I'm not a project management specialist, and I'm not a expert in software for virtual. I would say that every tool has its pros and cons, so discover it. But tools are just tools, right? Technology is just technology. It's about the human that make the technology effective. We can have the best technology, collaborative tools, but are we creating that safe space for people to share virtually and for people to feel connected? Okay, that's a human touch and a human difference. So you can have the best tools, best technology, but what makes the difference is still the people, leaders, and who bring it to life. All right. Okay, so many people are interested in empathy circle. So how do we measure the effectiveness? Okay, I think one way is to look at the start before implement this. What is the team psychology safety or even the team effectiveness kind of pulse check, okay? Very pulse check about where we are from a scale of 1 to 5 where we are, and then we can do one at the closure at the end of the empathy circle, and it can also be a series thereafter. So one of the client that I work with, we have a mixture. We did empathy circle, we also did team coaching, and actually every 2 months we do have a check-in with the members facilitated by me, and the leaders is also in the virtual coaching, whereby we look at the different competency every month. Yeah, so they use their leadership competencies to actually do the coaching. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Engage me. I think empathy circle, first you must give credit to Travelers. I think Travelers is the one who came up with this concept. Okay, and I'm very thankful for them to do this at this difficult period. Yeah. So empathy circle has to be done carefully because first, remember I mentioned there was one group who cried, and everybody cried, one after another when they share about their fears and how are they coping in CB. Even the leader was also crying. Yeah. So I think as a facilitator, we need to be very clear how grounded we are and how ready we are, because it can be a silent conversation at all. People do not feel safe to share and speak up. Yeah. So I think empathy circle is not something that because you get different groups of people, you never know what are their dynamics and how are they feeling and thinking. Yeah. So sometimes we do without the leader if the leader felt it's better, or sometimes we actually find it's ready, the dynamics are there, we'll get the leader forward. But what we want is that to build connections virtually, something that's been missing it in the face-to-face conversation at work, in the workplace. And people being social distancing away too long away from their boss. And it's going to happen for the next few months till the end year, perhaps. I think there's a very neat importance to actually create that space. Okay, so I've covered all the questions in the chat. I think there's no more in the last question. Yeah, last question. Okay, so I think during this pandemic has caused many people adopting digital technology for virtual engagement. So how do we deal and how to encourage elder leaders, employees to adapt to this norm? In fact, I think that everybody's adapting. It's no longer a choice. It's a fact that we have to accept it. Okay, last time we can avoid, we can resist, reject. Okay, so it's all right. No, digital transformation is not important. I can still live with it. So there was one very interesting WhatsApp message I received. The catalyst to digital transformation, surprisingly, is COVID-19. So imagine if we don't have all these tools, collaborative tools virtually, right? They can work from home. I mean, the economy, the company would have been unable to operate. So I think I've seen many senior people already embracing. So when I do training virtually, right, some of them are really hesitant. But through that mindset change, when they go through it, we first facilitate the process for them to have the ease of learning and adapting, and also getting them to know that what's already happening, and they really see it. Okay, and furthermore, some of them also shared that they really enjoy learning virtually. They get to see a different part of technology, and I think the first thing is I always tell them that your children or your grandchildren are even much more advanced than us. The students, I have a child and at home, when they do home-based learning, there's so much technology advanced. And we as more senior and senior age, we can't be a dinosaur. We really have to at least understand. We may not be the best in the technology tools, but at least understand and know how to do it. So I think you have already seen companies who used to resist technology, right? They are really on board. Although they may not be fully on board or they're still learning, but they know this is the only way to cope and to continue to operate. And even after post-COVID, right, this is going to happen. Like even now, what we are doing on the webinar can reach out to 128 people from all over the world. And there's also people calling out Singapore, if I'm not wrong. I think that really brings a very strong advantage of having technology. Yeah. So of course, one good way is to create buddies. So sometimes we do find that there are certain seniors who are very positive, very tech savvy. So we create peer support, right? We have buddies, we have peer support to help each other, and that creates a kind of a form of like support and cohesion among them. All right. So I think all questions are being answered already. Thank you so much, and thanks for your time. So the videos, I will hand over to Emmeline, and maybe Emmeline, you want to share what's next for it? Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much, Jasmine. We hope everyone has gained useful and practical tips to remotely appreciating your employees and colleagues. We all need more appreciation, encouragement, and positivity during this period. As we close off this webinar, please let us know your thoughts through the feedback survey that will be shown on screen later. There will be a QR code for everyone to scan, or you may also follow the redirect link after you close this window. Do also keep an eye out for SCCCI's latest events through our website. And that's all we have for today. Till next time. Thank you. Goodbye.